Hi and welcome to the Book Bar, where everything bookish is on the menu. I'm Anjanette Barr, and today I'm going to be doing a book review of a 4-book series. The series that I'm reviewing today is the Stolen Kingdom series by Bethany Atazadeh, and I'm going to put her YouTube channel in the description below because she's actually who kind of turned me on to BookTube inadvertently. I was watching her because she does AuthorTube and I write, and the more I watched her and followed other people who followed her, the more writers I found, the more authors I found on YouTube, which eventually led me to readers on YouTube. So I owe her a debt, and it took me a really long time to finally read one of her books, even though I had enjoyed her advice. So I finally did it. I'm making up for it. Thank you, Bethany. And I read all 4 of them recently, so I'm going to break them down for you. Now here on the Book Bar, it wouldn't be a video about books without it being also a video about drinks, and I usually choose a drink to go along with the book that I'm reading, but with 4 books that's a little challenging, and the drink that stands out to me the most from this series is like some magical wine that strips gin of their power, and I couldn't find any of that. So I had to get creative, and I remembered that Bethany really likes hot chocolate. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to drink a little bit of hot chocolate. I'm adding a little bit of chocolate chips extra. I'm going to enjoy my hot cocoa while I tell you about this great series. So this series is a young adult fairy tale retelling, or rather 3 loose retellings, and then a book that ties them all together. Fairy tale retellings are actually pretty popular right now across genres, and I think they're interesting. I think it's fun to see new writers' spins on old tales or myths, and I felt like the time was right to read this particular series because it is specifically young adult. Now, I am an eclectic reader. If you've been around here for a little bit, you have seen that I like to read lots of different genres for lots of different age groups, but I tend to go to YA when I need a break from something a little heavier or a little more serious. Sometimes if I'm reading literary fiction or really dense nonfiction, or even, even something that's just dark, I might go to a lighter, what I feel like is a lighter genre, or a lighter audience, because YA is not technically a genre, it's, an audience. Some people will go to something like cozy mysteries or romance, for instance, if they need to break up those reads that they're reading that are more challenging. And I tend to go toward YA for a number of reasons. One is that they're usually pretty clean, at least relatively. So if I've read something that had a lot of either gratuitous sex and gore, or just, even if it was meaningful for the plot, it was kind of heavy in those themes, then I like to go for something written to a younger audience next, just to kind of shake it off. So I do appreciate that about YA books. The other thing I like about them is that they're usually fairly fast-paced. It doesn't mean that they have to have a very simplistic plot, but the plot is not convoluted, and the action is captivating enough that you can keep reading fairly quickly. So I do like that after a book that I've felt like I needed to mull over a lot. And so if you notice it's a little bit of a departure from the last review that I did, that's why I love to just go back and forth between different types of books, and oftentimes reading to my children gives me that break, but these I read just for me. So this whole series is set in a fairy tale kingdom, and each book explores a different part of that kingdom. The first, which is called The Stolen Kingdom, is an Aladdin retelling. I have to admit that Aladdin was my very favorite Disney movie as a kid. So probably the fact that she put that one first did pull me into the series a little bit more than some other fairy tale retellings that I have seen. But I really do enjoy what she did with the tropes and the themes that set it apart from just another rehash of a Disney movie. And she also pulled in aspects from the fairy tale as recorded in other places. So I don't plan on giving any spoilers in this video because I do want you to check out the series if this interests you. And just skipping ahead a little bit in my thoughts, book number 4 actually comes out in just 1 week as I'm recording this, so probably just a few days, or obviously maybe after the fact by the time you're watching this. So you'll be able to read the entire series, though I did get book 4 a little early. So without spoiling anything, I'll tell you that The Stolen Kingdom does have our Aladdin and our Jasmine characters. Their names are Caden and Ari. Maybe she says Ari, I'm not sure. A-R-I-E. And some of the things that are very similar to the things that we enjoy from the Disney movie, for instance, is that they're both pretty spunky and there's a lot of banter, and I really thought a lot of it was very clever. I enjoyed both of these characters from the beginning, but she did give them different problems slightly. Although their personalities are similar in many ways, Ari is the heir of a kingdom, and she does love her father very much, and there is a bad guy who's going to try and manipulate her. But that's kind of where the similarities maybe don't end, but that's the only part where they're foundationally true. We do have a genie in this book, and we find out that the land of Jinn, where these jinnies are from, is not at peace with the kingdom of humans. And one of the things that complicates this plot that I think was creative, that we find out right at the beginning, so it's not a spoiler, is that Ari, our human princess, is struggling with a Jinni gift. Some humans have these magical powers that they don't have any control over possessing, but women are not allowed to have these powers. Men, it's like accepted, though they're kind of afraid of men, but women, it's just not acceptable. So at the beginning of our story, she knows she has it, but no one else does. So I won't tell you anything else about how it unfolds, but I will just say that I really enjoyed the relationships in the story. I loved Gideon, the Jinn. I thought he was really interestingly written, and that Bethany did a good job of pacing how much we understand about each character. I didn't feel like right at the beginning we know everything we want to know about them and the rest of it's just, waiting for the fairy tale ending. And speaking of the ending, my one critique of this book is that it's totally a cliffhanger. Now I know that won't deter some of you because some of you love cliffhangers and you even search out cliffhangers. I don't understand you. I do not like cliffhangers at all. Even in a series, I want things to end with everything all wrapped up. You can have like some hints that maybe the secondary characters are going to get their time in the limelight, which is true in this book. But the main characters did not get their resolution in this book either, and that was very frustrating to me. Funny story, I had planned on reading the one, and then I thought, okay, I'll read this one, I need a break, and I've really been meaning to read one of her books, but I'm not going to get the others just yet. And then she just made me. So clever on her, and I think that is why some writers do it, and it's not like it's wrong or bad. If I would have known that it was a cliffhanger, I may not have read it when I did, but I did, and then I bought the others. So that one's a cliffhanger. The next one, which I'll talk about in just a minute, is not so much of a cliffhanger, and then the final of the 4 definitely wraps everything all up, and the third is a cliffhanger, but you've already got the pace of the series. So before I go on to book number 2, just know that even though this one's a cliffhanger, since they're all out now, it's not that big of a deal. Just buy the second one. Book 2 in the series is the Jinni Key. I read all of these on Kindle, so sorry about the picture, but it is fun artwork. I do kind of wish I had the paperbacks because I've seen her line them all up and they're really pretty. The Jinni Key is a Little Mermaid retelling, and I felt like in order of how much changed from the original stories, more and more changes as you go on. So the Aladdin retelling certainly has lots of creativity and new aspects to it, but the Jinni Key makes quite a few surprising departures from any of the Little Mermaid stories that we might be familiar with. She is a mermaid princess, however she has several siblings, and our main character, who is Rena, is gifted with a Jinni Key. That's where the title comes from. That is really more of a burden than a gift. And the whole story is centered kind of around mere politics, mere being the people, the mermaid people, and family relations, and how the families work together is not at all what we would be used to admiring in our kingdom. And so I feel like she's given more of a backstory to want to see the surface, more of a reason to see the surface, and in some ways it elevates this princess character from just our fun, naive, sweet Little Mermaid to a teenager with kind of real heavy struggles. So I really appreciated that. However, part of the fun is that she's still super naive. She's been in the ocean her entire life. So as the story progresses, there's lots of comedic relief, and I really enjoyed her character. She feels a little younger to me than the other princesses that we encounter, the other main female characters, because of that naivety, but it was really fun. And I really love the resolution to this story, and again, it was not as much of a cliffhanger. There is still reason at the end to keep reading to the third and fourth, but I didn't feel so much like, wait, what? What happened? So that was a good surprise and kept me going, because I think if I had had 2 cliffhangers in a row, I might have been like, okay, I'm just going to take a break. But I did not take a break. I just kept reading because these were just really fun stories. So our main, actually, I'm not going to tell you anything about the main male characters of that one. No spoilers. But as with the humans, the Jinni and the mermaids do not get along. So there's lots of, the author has been laying the foundation for these kingdoms to have conflict as well as the main characters, which is what really makes this a cohesive set rather than just kind of a collection of fairy tale retellings. These characters do come in and out of each other's lives for the whole series. So that's really fun because you get to spend more time with these people that you're getting to know and follow them through more than one conflict and resolution. The third book in the series was The Cursed Hunter, and this is a very loose Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I've got to say, I think this one was my favorite out of all of them. I loved the characters, I loved the plot changes, and I actually loved some of the ways that she utilized other Beauty and the Beast elements from the various fairy tale renditions, but for her own purposes. So just an example of this that's not too much of a spoiler. In the Andrew Lang version of Beauty and the Beast, which I've read to my children, Beauty, the Beauty character, has siblings, and they're all kind of selfish and don't really care about their father who's working hard to provide for them, and he dotes on them and he wants to bring them all gifts home. And the gift that Beauty in this story, in the Andrew Lang version of the fairy tale, asks for is a rose, and that ends up being what gets him into trouble. And then the Disney version, of course, Belle is the only child, and her father's eccentric, and you know the story. So in this story, that rose does make a comeback in the Andrew Lang sense, not the Disney sense, and that just made me excited because I'm like, oh, literary references, I get it. I always love things like that. So good job, Bethany. But also, this main character, whose name is Nesrine, does have siblings, and I really loved the familial interplay in her family. Also, rather than being kind of a European feeling provincial town, this is set in a world that feels more Eastern, and I thought that was an interesting element to add more richness to the world building that we just didn't assume. We couldn't just see it because we were picturing the Disney movie or something else. The author just took us to a different place and built up this world quite differently with some of the same elements. So if you read the cover copy of this book, you'll find out that Nesrine is a dragon hunter. So the elements of her personality that make her stand out, I'm thinking about the Disney's Belle version, where she's kind of more introspective and wants to get out of this town and have adventures, and she's intelligent. Those carry over in a completely different way, in the fact that where her siblings are interested in kind of society and intrigue within the relationships and finding, you know, boys and girls to dance with and things, Nesrine is interested in proving herself as a dragon hunter. This one is full of adventure, and it is more standalone, and as the story unfolds, we get some of the answers to the problems from the first books, and it's just a really satisfying next step with really interesting characters and a lot of themes to think about, like sacrifice and courage, and maybe, you know, as you would expect, not judging people by your first impressions, or maybe not even judging yourself by first impressions or by what you think your limitations are, which is definitely a theme throughout the whole series. Is all of our princesses underestimate themselves in some way, and so you get that really fun character arc where you really get to see them grow and where you get to see them learn themselves and the people around them better than they did at the beginning of the story. So I loved the way the author develops all of the heroines especially. Now, book number 4 is The Enchanted Crown. This is the longest of all of them, and you can tell she's taking her time to weave all of the bits and pieces back into a storyline with its own arc and its own action. There's definitely a lot that goes on. It's not just, and here's why I said this in the first book. Here, look, you know, there's not just a lot of, you know, dun 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 dun, reveal, but everything is revealed in the 4th book, The Enchanted Crown, when the kingdoms that we have been learning about in the other 3 books have to come together against the Jinni Queen, who is a threat to all of them. We get to see all of the characters from the previous books shine. We get to see them use what they've learned and come together as a team. It was very satisfying. I did like the way all of it turned out. It was not a cliffhanger, although it definitely left me feeling like, are you sure you're not going to write more, Bethany? Because I definitely felt like if she wanted to, she could just continue on with this world she's built with these different kingdoms. I don't think it would be difficult to come up with more stories for these characters, which is fun, even if she doesn't, because that just means that they feel real to me as much as fairy tale retelling characters can feel real, because I can imagine them going on from where these stories left off. So overall, this was exactly what I was looking for. It kept me up at night. It distracted me from life for a little while. It kind of cleansed my palette from some heavier reads that I had been reading, and it was just a lot of fun and made me laugh, and I think it might have made me cry. It certainly could have made me cry. I can't remember if I actually cried, but there were lots of emotional moments, as well as many uplifting moments and lots of tension, lots of action. So like I said, book 4 is just about to come out March 23rd, I think. So make sure that you check that out for sure. And like I said, be sure to follow Bethany's YouTube channel. It's a lot of fun, and I think even if you're a reader rather than a writer, you'll enjoy some of the topics on her channel. And leave me a comment and tell me if you enjoy fairy tale retellings, and if you enjoy young adult books, and what some of your favorites are. I would love to get recommendations for the next time I need a break from heavier things, or if you have maybe your favorite retelling from one of those stories that I could compare and contrast. That would be interesting. So leave me a comment, tell me what you're reading, and as always, I put it down, tell me what's in your cup.